Hello everyone, I'm Nesbit and you're the People of Skyrim. Okay, this is a review really of the People of Skyrim Complete. What people would see is the first mod I put out, especially if they were sort of late to my work, but it wasn't. But it's all based around the Nordic way of life. Simple, you know, working with the woods and the fishes and the meats available to them, and everything that I did was sort of very simple in its construct. Nothing was elaborate or complicated, and this was also at the time a choice for gameplay and stability and so on. And if you look at Riverwood here, you'll see that there's a lot of stumps and logs, and so everything was sort of themed around the game. And there's a guy there on the toilet there, as you can see. I like to add things like that. And you had the smoking of the fishes and so on and so forth, and that was the People of Skyrim Complete. That is the People of Skyrim Complete. It's fundamentally around simple life and simple living, you know, not the extravagance of empire or the search of conquest and power, but in the joy of day-to-day lives. And even back then there were patrols like the Dawn Guard, as you see here, and there were just little touches everywhere, like the bridge here just coming out of Riverwood, and some old ruins. And then we get down to the outskirts of Whiterun, and there's a lot in that area, including a refugee camp. And there's still Thalmor outposts at this stage in the People of Skyrim Complete. So yeah, I mean, and this refugee camp was from the war, is to do with the war, so that's why it's there. And the Battleborn family are doing well out of its location, and were given, you know, the care of the refugees, so they've basically used them as labour. So there's sort of themes and backstories to the thinking on this here. And you'll find a companion's house there, and with payments from the Battleborns, along with the sort of tower in the background, or you will, or you have, I'm not sure if you've seen it yet, and that's the Whiterun market. So everything about the People of Skyrim Complete, and an Argonian on the outskirts here, down by the river. So everything about the People of Skyrim Complete is very much about, and always has been, whether it's TPOSC or TPOS2, playing on the themes of the game and trying to fill those holes that I sort of felt were vacant. The game could have put a little bit more in, but the People of Skyrim Complete is a very simple mod. Like I say, I mean, and what I add, there isn't a great deal. Whiterun and Riften probably being the two biggest places, but the tundra's changed as well. You'll see here I've added lots of trees, I've removed grass. You'll find bits of road missing. That's immersive touches from war, from erosion, and all the rest of it. So if you're walking the road and you find some bits of road, that's because they've been deliberately removed. And then you're walking on dirt, then you're back onto the road. So it's all been redesigned to sort of reflect my thinking about how things would be. And even with Whiterun here, you know, again, it's simple. It's mostly trees and veg, a few, like I say, bread making facilities. You've got your books there, your potions, lots of flowers, you know, lots of herbs, a little bit of weaving, you know, little touches. It was never extravagant, always very simple, keeping in mind, from my perspective, the world that we're inhabiting, the Nords. You know, the Empire is there, and with them comes, you know, more eloquence, if you like, more extravagance, so on. But we're pretty much in a Nord world, and a world that is based around living with the earth and with the elements that are available. Yeah, they worked with stone and whatever too, but they were still at the core very much a simple people. And I say simple not in a derogatory way, far from it. They had the common sense to stick with what they are at their roots, whereas culture and empire, which strives to move beyond what they are and consider that to be progress. In some ways one could argue it is, in other ways it's not. It depends what you give up along the way, isn't it? from my point of view. And that's what I wanted to get back to really with TPOSC, that you know, that Nordic way of life, that simplicity. Signs of logging everywhere, as you just saw, and there's also traps. That bright light you saw was a trap. That's a spoiler, I know, but the traps in the People of Skyrim Complete is nowhere near as many as TPOS2, but there are more settlements. This is just outside Rorikstead now, and this is another market, because on the way, you know, to Rorikstead, people have set up markets and to trade in between, you know. Very much like where I came from, the town that I grew up in was exactly like that. It was based just outside a larger settlement, if you like, down the road, but it grew to be bigger than everything combined around it within the area, because from that market grew a church, you know, back in the 14th or 13th century or whatever it was, and it grew from there. And it grew bigger than all the other little villages and little towns that surrounded it at the end of the day. And that's one of the reasons I put that market there, because it reminded me of my home, where I come from, and the sort of history. Here you've got, like I say, and Rorikstead, as we've passed through while I've been talking, is very simple again. Playing on the theme of the garden, in Sissel in the garden. And then another little bridge that leads from the tundra and helps travellers to Rorikstead. And also an army as well, so that's the reason that bridge is there. Then we get to Dragon Bridge now, and again another settlement or market just outside of the town. So they've all sort of been done with purpose, but again the signs of forts around Dragon Bridge, because again thinking of the Elven War, the Civil War, everything else that's going on. You know, the Empire are sort of invasive, and over time, you know, will stamp and put their mark upon the Nordic people. That's, you know, there's no doubt that was going to happen more and more, and I sort of wanted to reflect that in TPOSC as well. So everything that I did with the People of Skyrim Complete was all about thinking about the game and the influences upon the peoples and one thing or another. And TPOS2 is a bigger reflection of that, and TPOS3, the question version, well, that really will complete the cycle. But here at Solitude, of course, there's more influence of the Nords. There's more sophistication, if you like, and so this goes on within this mod. That you know, there is the influence of Empire in it. There's the influence of very much the Nordic people in it, and so on and so forth, and the Orcs, you know, and all the races really. Across Skyrim. So, you know, I'll be doing more videos on the People of Skyrim Complete and talking more about it. Technically, I'm working on some updates at the moment for Xbox, and those updates will be applied to the PC version as well, of course. But a patron asked me about how I got into modern and how I got into making the People of Skyrim Complete, and Shane, a guy that made the TPOS website for me, and a couple others have asked the same questions along the way, so I thought I'd answer that today briefly and while you watch the video. But I worked for years, my whole life, in sort of you know, psychology, care industry supported work for people that had gone through a lot of trauma based stuff, helping them reshape their lives and stuff like that, and that was very rewarding. And then that fell apart, and I became ill for maybe a few years, and that was pretty serious. But anyway, during that time, you know, when you suffer a lot of illness or pain, you can go into some real dark places, and of course, being aware of trauma, being aware of the human condition, if you like, I knew that, you know, sometimes, or for a lot of people, if they don't have a strength of will or an understanding, you know, they can travel a dark road an empty and lonely road for a very long time. So I knew I had limited options. What was I going to do? And so it so happens Skyrim came out, and I was a game player anyway. I love playing games. I got into Skyrim, And then after about 3 or 4 weeks of that, and I'd completed the game, I started to look at the mods because I was aware of Nexus, and I started thinking about modding, and that's really how I got into it. And I did it for a long time, sort of part-time. But I say part-time, I put a lot of hours into it, but it still wasn't my primary concern. But what it did do was give me a focus, and it helped me through some difficult times. And that's really how I got into modding. I did it, one, because I enjoyed the game, but secondly, I needed a new focus and a new outlet, and that was it. And so from that, I started off making mods, and my first mod was the Whiterun settlement mod that you saw. That was my first mod, and then I made a couple other mods, and then I did a house mod, and then I added started to add them together in my because people were saying, oh, could you put them all into one pack? So I started putting all these mods in the one pack, and I started to have this idea about, you know, I could go through the whole of Skyrim, change a hell of a lot of stuff, add a new lot of content, and start building and going from there. And that's how the People of Skyrim began. Once I created the new pack and I thought about putting new stuff in, I thought, right, now I need a name. And the People of Skyrim just seemed apt at the time. It's the first thing that came into my head. And as someone once said, you know, the first thing you think of is generally the best. And so that's how the People of Skyrim came into being in terms of its name and its early creation. But that early creation went on for about 4 years on and off, doing new stuff, adding stuff. It grew. I can't really quite remember in how exactly the order was, but I know I came up with the name. I know I packed stuff all together, and I remember calling it the People of Skyrim. And it was the People of Skyrim, I think I called it the People of Skyrim Special Edition. And that was still around 2013, maybe, around there. But then around a year or so later after its release, and because it was such an ambitious mod for someone who was new at making mods, it came with a lot of complications and a lot of hard lessons in terms of understanding nav mesh, patching, even understanding the basics of building a house, of building followers. All these things had to be learned. And really, to be honest, I bit off way more than I could chew. It got on top of me. Certain other elements didn't help my progression in terms of so-called help giving. Some authors deliberately hindered me. And again, you go through quite a journey when you take on this sort of project. Even if you're just making a mod in one cell, like a house and an interior, if you think of something like Elysium Estate, for an example, that's quite a project in itself. So, you know, and that takes a lot. But then you've got to deal with patches and then other mod authors and so on and so forth. So if you can imagine the size of the People of Skyrim and what I've had to work through to get it where it is, believe me, the trials and the challenges are big. But what makes them worse are indifferent people, aggressive people, people that always look to blame you even when there's the issue's not yours. And I won't go on. The point I'm making is you will come across, if you haven't made mods, if you ever do make mods, I tell you now, be prepared for a real mixed bag. You meet some nice people along the way, some very supportive people, but they are few. They are few compared to the amount of assholes that are out there, and that's putting it bluntly and nicely. If it's not mod authors not willing to either work or support or be decent about certain things, who have got massive egos and somehow think their mod is the be all and end all and it should supersede everyone else's, you know, then you've got people that really don't know how to mod, and they'll blame any author at any given time for their constant failures, and get really quite nasty about it. I mean, if you get into mod making, you will have to deal with quite a lot. But so along the way, the point is, I after about, I don't know, 4 years or so, I was just exhausted because I still wasn't well. I was absorbing a lot of information, and it basically overwhelmed me, to put it simply. That on top of everything else, it was, and I walked away. And about a year or so later, I was still getting emails. My missus said, you know, you did so much work, why throw it away? Go and revisit it. When I told her I got another email a day, I sort of finally went back to looking at the People of Skyrim and reshaping it and thinking, right, I'm going to save myself a hardship with compatibility. I'll make as many towns as free as possible so people can mod those. I'll make patches for these particular types of mods, and I'll put that out. And I always wanted to do a quest, because even back before I stopped, I'd made a quest island for the Dwemer. I had lots of other material for the Thalmor, and those ideas that I talk about now, I had long ago and wanted to implement them long ago. But it all sort of, like I say, you know, you can have lots of ideas, but it takes time for many things to shape and to acquire the skills to be able to fulfill the ambition and the ideas that you have. So yeah, I came back simply, and I took it slowly with the People of Skyrim 2. But even then, it still wasn't simple, because I didn't, for example, PC wasn't so bad, but then I put it on Xbox. That was complicated because I didn't have an Xbox. I was getting mixed reports. I didn't know whether I was, again, remembering past experiences, I didn't know whether I was being fucked around with in terms of reports, because you have to realise, you know, you get genuine reports, and then you get people reporting stuff that isn't true, quite simply. All right, and you pretty much know when you're getting a genuine report of a genuine issue that's something related to your mod, and then you still check everything, which becomes very tiring when you're constantly checking old ground, because again you have to, because the simple truth is, with better set updates, with mods changing, you never know. You know, you a lot of the times, 99.9% of the time you're right, but you never know that 1% where a mod's been updated or something has changed something to cause an issue. So that's the bugger. You've always got to check whether you know someone's fucking you around or not. Always. But like I say, there is a lot to a life of a mod author. It's not an easy path, and especially when you don't have a lot of money either, and those are more elements in there that one has to deal with on a monthly basis. So it goes on and it goes on and it goes on. But needless to say, TPOS2 came out, and I persevered with it, and I got some help along the way, some real good help, and to those people I'm really grateful. And I'm still getting some help, and to those people I'm really grateful. And it got better in a lot of ways. My ability to understand the work, to cope with the level of work, to cope with my own ambition, because you're also dealing with your own vein. As I've said to people before, we are, you know, like Aldril Wynn, you know, we are all our own bane. You can point fingers and talk about other people as much as you want, really, but ultimately, you know, we're our own source of our own problems, good or bad, you know. And our self-management and our self-mastery is the ultimate challenge in any man's life, in anyone's life, man or woman. Modding will take you through many pathways and many roads, and the simple trick is, at the end of the day, is to move from one pathway to another with as much grace as you can, understanding that you move from one failure to the next, and somewhere along the line, if you're lucky, you might just succeed. In fact, that's the essence of life, really. We build upon what we are, and most of what we are has been born from failure. And so if you're like me, someone who likes to seek perfection, best drop that one now, because you're never going to find it. Maybe only when you pass over. Then you might find some level of perfection. Anyway, that's very much an overview of my journey and how I got into mods. It all came from pain really from a difficult situation. But like I say, when bad things happen, people will tend to go, oh no, but you know, all right, the moment or so, or even for a while, it might be bad. It might linger. The storm might hang around for a while, but it passes. And if we're sensible enough, and if we're brave enough, we come out with something more from it. And what I mean by that, it doesn't matter whether your mod has 100 likes or 100,000 or even 1 million. That's not the prize, really. The prize comes in terms of your interior growth. That's where the prize is, and the enjoyment in what you do. But for anyone who, you know, as the patron asked me, for anyone that's thinking about mod making, be aware it's one tough road. Even for a relatively small mod, let alone something like that, you know, the mods that I work on. But I work on them because, one, I'm foolish, two, I'm ambitious, which is you know, but three, I like to push myself. I like to challenge myself in my creative skills, in my ability to learn, to adapt, and to overcome. I did it when I was out in the world, you know, when I was more able to do that, and nothing's really changed much. You know, your body might go, your mind might even go. It's some, you know, as you get older, or your sharpness, but the fundamental core of your spirit always remains. Whether or not you've got the tools for the spirit to express itself is another thing altogether. Because ultimately we head back to the beginning, don't we? I mean, and things, you know, life gives, and then it starts to take slowly, and allows you to get used to that idea before it takes the vehicle you're traveling in. But anyway, that's what, you know, this is what, how, or if you like, this is how the People of Skyrim came into being. It's why I still do what I do, even though the interest in Skyrim has dropped quite a lot. Most people now just, you know, play around with Skyrim, I think, and like to look at new mods, and like whether it's textures or animations or whatever. They're not really into playing the game in any big way anymore, I don't think. But maybe I'm wrong on that. But the point is, that's how I got into Skyrim, and why I'm going to complete this project that I've set out to do. Even if it takes another 3 years or 2 years, I want to complete it before E6 comes out. And really, this is what I'm about. This is what Nesbitt's about. This is what his work's about. This is what the People of Skyrim is about, whether it's complete, TPOS2 or TPOS3, the question version that will be coming. And of course, before TPOS3, you're going to have TPOS2, TPOS2, the special edition, because that's going to have all the towns and villages and all the question material laid out in it, ready for me to build the quest on top of that. And the fact that I'm putting the special edition out will be because I want it played and tested, and I want it to be stable and right before I start building the quest upon it, which is a process, a sensible process to go through. So the People of Skyrim Complete will be coming to Xbox soon. PC will be getting updates. I hope my Patreon and others that wanted this enjoy the chat. I hope I haven't bored you too much, and I'll be doing more videos on the People of Skyrim Complete, just for, you know, from a trailer point of view, for people that have never used it, so they can see some of the content and see how it differs from the People of Skyrim 2, and for the YouTube channel, so you'll be having more videos too. I might do some more talking if people want it. If not, I'll just stick the usual nice background music in and let you watch the videos at your leisure in relation to the content. I'm Nesbitt. You're the People of Skyrim. Good gaming, folks.